Today's game review is for the Atari 2600. Let's take a look at the fact file for it straight away. The game is called Subterranea and it was released in 1983. This is a PAL version release. Publisher was Imagic. Developer name was Mark Klein, and the price I paid for this game was £1.20. I think I got that as part of a bundle, which is why it was so cheap. The going rate for this on eBay at the moment is about £10 to £15 for an unboxed copy. Boxed copies are a lot more than that. Although there is a guy on eBay right now selling a copy for $280. If he can sell his unboxed cart only that looks just like this for that amount of money, then I'll be considering selling mine for sure. This is what the cartridge looks like. Not much point looking at it in any more detail. It's a pretty bland sort of label on it. So let's get on with the review straight away. As with most Atari 2600 games, not much of a title screen to speak of. You've got the Imagic logo in the top right corner there, and also a bit of a rolling demo of the gameplay of the game. That's more than you get on most Atari 2600 games, in all fairness. So enough of the introduction, let's get on with the game. And you control the spaceship, the green spaceship that's moving left and right on the screen. This, oh, that's not a very good start. This crab looking thing at the bottom is firing up these balls at you, and after a short amount of time of shooting those and trying not to get killed by them, he leaves the screen and leaves this green blob at the bottom of the screen, and when you collect that blob, it opens up a hole in the bottom of the screen, which then sends you down into the subterranean areas to fight lots of other stuff. So that first level, it doesn't scroll, but this one does. As you can see, we're scrolling left and right, kind of Defender style, where as you change direction there's a little bit of inertia. Pretty nicely done. Nice scrolling for an Atari 2600 game. No flickering of sprites either. It's very nicely programmed, quite a good technical achievement. I'm not having a very good go of it though right here. So the idea on each stage is to clear each stage of enemies and then progress to the next stage. Pretty standard stuff. When you've completed each stage, a doorway will open to the next stage at the bottom of the screen, and you can see those two little balls either side of the doorway are firing a little kind of laser beam across. You don't want to hit that, you want to go through the gap when that's not there, like so. You also might have noticed every time that laser beam appears, one is deducted from your score. The enemies obviously increase in difficulty. These ones kind of bounce up and down a little bit, but overall they're not too difficult to get rid of, as long as you don't crash into them. So that's another level completed, and let's find the exit. And as you can see now, it's a little bit more challenging because there's two laser beam things which are playing a little kind of a tune, and there's a pattern. It's like the top one activates a couple of times and then the bottom one does. Oh, and that's what happens if you try and go through it when the beams are across there. So again, every time one of those beams activates, your score is decreased by 1, so the idea is to get through the exit as quickly as possible. And then it's more of the same. For some reason on this stage there's not that many enemies to get rid of. You might have noticed in the middle at the bottom of the screen there's a little bar which goes down, so you can see how many enemies you've got to dispose of before you'll complete the stage. There we go, that's done that. And that's basically the first sort of cycle of screens completed. When I go through this thing, it'll go back to the start, but with a little bit more difficulty and slightly different colours, I believe. So there we go, I'm back on the first screen again. Now these things that the crabby thing at the bottom fires at you home in on you a little bit more. So the strategy I've deployed is to go at one side of the screen, wait for him to unleash one, and then quickly zap over to the other side of the screen and try and shoot back up the direction I've come from, although that was a complete mess I made of that one. A lot of the time it's fairly straightforward, and other times you just can't quite get them. So that's basically the structure of the game. There's not much more to it. You just cycle the same thing over again. I'll continue playing in a minute. Just a couple of things to mention before I do that. Sounds are quite decent. You've got the sort of thrusting of the ship, and the movement of the ship's quite cool as well. Good nice solid laser beam sound. There's a few other little jingles throughout the game as well. Graphics for the Atari 2600 are also pretty decent, nicely coloured, nicely designed, not too blocky. And as I already mentioned, the scrolling's pretty cool. The scrolling as you go down this tube is good. Now when we get to this level now, these things actually shoot at you now. So you've got to dodge around a little bit more than you do on the earlier stages, where you can pretty much just stand still and wait for things to fly past you. My approach, as you've seen, is basically to just fly up behind stuff and shoot it from behind. It's much easier than trying to take it head on. So that's another set of enemies that have been got rid of. And now you can see it's even more complicated because there's 4 barrier things and they're doing a pattern which I've never been able to work out. I'm going to give it a try. But if you fail to get through this with a certain number of attempts, it will reset the level and you have to replay the level, complete it again, and you get no score for that replay. No, I'm really not good at this. I can't work out this pattern at all. No. No, I failed it after all that. I lost a lot of scores during that period of time as well. So basically you replay the level again. As you can see, my score's not changing, but I can still get shot. Oh, like that. Oh. That does happen sometimes where you just can't avoid getting shot. Okay, and what happens now is when you go back to the barrier, it's a little bit slower, so you can get through it a little bit easier. Like that. Much easier the second time around, although you have to endure another wave of enemies to get to it. This stage, there's a little flashy thing there, I'm not quite sure what that is, but shot it anyway. This stage is probably a little bit easier than the preceding one because they don't shoot at you, although they do move quite quickly. Okay, so that's another wave of enemies disposed of. Oh, don't want to crash into that. And again, we've got another cycle of lasers that I've got to try and work my way through. Oh, did it? That wasn't so difficult as the last one. Oh, that's annoying. So again, another small wave of enemies to get rid of. Oh, these shoot at you as well as bouncing around. Oh, come here. Got you. One more. Yeah, only 3 to get rid of on that wave. And that completes the second wave of levels, and you go back to the beginning, and again it's more of the same but a little bit more difficult, slightly different colours, slightly different enemies being flung from the crab guy again at the bottom there as well. Come on then. So all in all, it's a pretty nice game. Straightforward arcade style action, as were most of the Atari 2600 games. Oh, there's a lot of enemies on this stage. Oh, oh, come here. Oh. It's getting quite. Oh, there we go. That's game over. So there you go, that was it. I'm not going to play through it again because you can see it's pretty much just a repeat of the same levels but more and more difficult. What it has got, however, is a different game mode. Oops, pressed the wrong button. Which is pretty much the same game but more difficult. Which I think is this option. Let's give it a go. Yeah, basically the only difference in this mode is you can see the bar across the bottom of the screen there denoting how many enemies are left to destroy is longer. So basically it just takes longer to complete each stage. The difficulty level is not any greater other than the fact that you have to shoot more of these things on each stage. which obviously means there's more chance of getting killed. Like that. So yeah, I'm not gonna do very well, it seems. I'm not going to persist much longer with this, but the first stage becomes very boring on this higher difficulty level. So I'll just sum up by saying that it's a decent enough game, good arcade style action, nicely technically programmed and everything, good job done by the developer, and definitely one of the better shoot 'em ups of this style on the Atari 2600. So considering it only cost me £1.20, I will be keeping this game, unless that is that I can find that the guy who's trying to sell a copy for like $200 on eBay actually manages to sell his copy, in which case it doesn't matter how good the game is, I won't be keeping it.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
2, 1, 0.